Imagine standing at the window of a corner office on the 50th floor. You have the title, the seven-figure compensation package, and the authority to move markets with a single memo. But as you look at your reflection in the glass, there is a nagging, quiet realization. The person staring back isn't you. It is a highly polished, carefully edited version of you designed to survive boardrooms and navigate internal politics. You are winning the game, but you feel like a ghost in your own life. This is the silent crisis of the modern executive, a state where professional competence and personal purpose have drifted so far apart they no longer recognize each other. You aren't just tired, you are experiencing existential burnout, achieving outcomes that please the street and the board, but fail to nourish your own sense of meaning. According to Harvard Business Review, 50% of senior executives are expected to fail. The baseline for competent leadership remains staggeringly low. Why? Because most leaders are operating out of survival strategies they learned decades ago. They are pleasing, overperforming, or withdrawing to stay safe, mistaking these old protective habits for their true professional identity. Research confirms that objective success, the bonuses and the titles, is only modestly correlated with internal fulfillment. You can climb the mountain and still find yourself starving at the top because you've optimized for a system that values your conformity more than your curiosity. To bridge this gap, we must first map the distance between your best intentions and your daily adaptations. This requires more than a simple resolution. It requires a 90-day ritual of self-reinvention. At the end of every week, the elite leader must identify the 3 moments where they felt most like themselves and the 3 moments where they felt off track. In those off-track moments, the typical self usually takes the wheel, driven by a fear of rejection or a loss of control. By naming the trigger, asking what part of yourself you were trying to protect in that moment, you gain the agency to choose who you want to be instead of reenacting a survival script from your past. This brings us to a hard truth about organizational life. Organizations don't just hire leaders to change them, they often hire them to preserve a sense of continuity. As you rise higher, the incentives shift toward political skill rather than transformative courage. This creates a gravitational pull toward the status quo. To resist it, you must develop what we call contextual intelligence, the ability to understand the rules of the system without being ruled by them. True leadership is an argument with tradition. It requires practicing principled dissent at least once a week, asking the unspoken question or challenging an unsupported assumption. These micro acts of courage build the muscle of system-changing leadership, ensuring you are playing the game without being played by it. To understand the mechanics of this evolution, we must look at the professional framework of learning versus performance. When the pressure is on, most leaders retreat into what they know. They rely on rehearsed strengths to avoid appearing uncertain. But the most successful transformation in modern corporate history tells a different story. When Satya Nadella took the helm at Microsoft, he didn't just change the product line, he changed the psychological ethos. He moved the needle from a know-it-all culture to a learn-it-all culture. He proved that the real currency of progress isn't knowing the answer, it is the humility to ask the question. To operate in this mode, you must set an ignorance goal every month, choosing a skill or a topic where you are a total beginner. By making your learning visible, you rewire the trigger that says, not knowing equals incompetence. Finally, we must address the natural human aversion to change. As we accumulate success, our habits harden into identity. We become exaggerated versions of our earlier selves, clinging to behaviors because they once provided safety or competence. But real growth requires unlearning. It requires the willingness to treat yourself as an ongoing prototype rather than a finished product. Neuroscience shows us that while behavioral plasticity declines with age, it never disappears. You must build a growth discomfort zone by doing something 10% harder than your instinct allows. If you typically default to certainty, practice curiosity. If you normally solve every problem, try asking your team for their approach instead. These micro-reversals expose the identity-based triggers behind your performance mode. To summarize the strategic takeaway for this briefing, we must view leadership through the lens of industrial organizational psychology. Sustaining elite performance is not a matter of willpower. It is a discipline of awareness. It requires a mastery of contextual intelligence, the ability to navigate organizational systems while maintaining your operational leverage. By recognizing maladaptive triggers and fostering psychological safety, a leader can transition from typical performance to a state of consistent maximal output. Thank you for your time. We'll see you in our next briefing.